Coming up on your evening on Spectrum News 1, COVID-19 cases are ticking up nationwide. The CDC says the Delta variant accounts for a majority of those new cases. We'll hear from an epidemiologist about whether New Yorkers should be concerned. Plus, border restrictions extended. The U.S. announcing the northern border will remain closed to non-essential travel until at least August 21st. What lawmakers have to say about this and nearing a deal with drug distributors. New York State has signed on to a $26 billion proposed global agreement to resolve claims with opioid manufacturers. Why Attorney General Letitia James says this could end the opioid epidemic. These stories and more as Spectrum News 1 starts right now.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us here on your evening on Spectrum News 1. I'm Karen Edwards.
And I'm Marissa Jacks. You're halfway through the work week. We'll have much more on your top stories in just a minute. But let's start by getting a quick check of your Weather on the One's forecast.
Good Wednesday evening. I'm Spectrum News meteorologist Ryan Finn. Any showers or thundery downpours we have out there this evening will taper by 10 o'clock. Skies becoming mostly clear. We've got some great sleeping weather coming up here for tonight. Could probably get away with shutting the AC off and leaving the windows open as we're going to drop down into the 50s. In fact, we're right around 60 by midnight, mid to upper 50s by tomorrow morning in the greater capital region. Now, for tomorrow, a lot of sun early on. And then we look toward the afternoon. We'll have some fair weather fluff dotting the sky. Temperature is a hint cool, but certainly a nice enough day to be outdoors. A pleasantly cool day, we'll call it. We've got a couple pop-up thunderstorms in the forecast here for Friday as we wrap up another work week, but many areas will get through the day completely dry. Weekend forecast is going to be half good, half bad. We'll detail that and take a look at your 7-day forecast coming up in the next half hour.
Thanks, Ryan. We'll be sure to check back in with you later on this evening. Let's take a look now at some top stories making headlines here on Spectrum News 1. A new law in effect in Albany will help protect renters from being priced out of where they live. The good cause eviction law will mandate that tenants cannot be removed from a home without meeting the grounds for eviction and will protect residents from annual rent increases of more than 5%. Officials in Albany say less residential turnover will help create lasting relationships in the community. Meanwhile, state officials are conducting meetings in various communities across the region designed to address gun violence. Governor Andrew Cuomo making it a priority to keep at-risk youth from falling into the cycle of violence and has created hundreds of jobs for young adults ages 15 to 24 to help keep them off the streets. Those jobs will be based in Albany, Troy, and Schenectady and last throughout the summer. And keeping Saratoga's four-legged athletes healthy takes hours and hours of hard work and love. We'll introduce you to a couple of people doing just that at the spa. The director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention telling members of Congress the U.S. is seeing a dramatic increase in COVID-19 cases. Dr. Rochelle Walensky saying the Delta variant now makes up an estimated 83% of cases nationwide.
New York State is also seeing an uptick this month in new COVID cases. Spectrum News 1 reporter Andy Young talked with an epidemiologist about these trends and if there's any cause for concern.
New York State's COVID-19 cases and percentage of people testing positive have risen some over the past month, although the numbers are nowhere near as high as they were several months ago. On Tuesday, the average positivity rate was 1.4%, up from less than 0.5% a month ago. State and CDC data shows roughly 56% of all New Yorkers have been vaccinated. We asked infectious disease doctor John Selleck what his key concerns are when looking at the trends across the state and the country.
Will we see a return of what we had this past winter or what we had a year ago, a little bit more than a year ago with our surges? And of course, much of this depends on vaccination rates. So I think in places where we have high vaccination rates, we'd love to get where New Hampshire is and get up to 70+% would be great. I think it will make it very unlikely that we'd have big surges, but we will continue to see pockets of activity primarily among people who have not been vaccinated.
The CDC says the more infectious Delta variant of the virus now accounts for 83% of new cases in the United States. Selleck said it is a worry, but there are some positives to take away.
If you're completely vaccinated, you have protection against this, especially with the mRNA vaccines. The problem is for the people who have not been vaccinated. The vast majority of the high caseload states are states with low vaccination rates. It's a real lesson for us. The more people we get vaccinated, the better we're going to be, Delta or not.
Some places in other parts of the country are seeing a spike in cases. In Los Angeles County, they've gone back to mandating masks indoors, whether people are vaccinated or not. Could New York be in store for something similar?
There's a real hesitancy to go back to that, especially in the good weather, for us, even though it's not been so great the last week or so. And we're just going to have to be open-minded about this. If we start getting a lot of cases, then we may be back to mask wearing for everyone. But right now, the data are that if you're fully vaccinated, you don't need to mask.
Selleck also says experts expected to see a tiny number of so-called breakthrough cases of people who've had the vaccine still contracting the virus. Andy Young, Spectrum News.
Continuing coverage now, another setback for advocates looking to see our northern border open up. The U.S. now saying restrictions are going to stay in place until at least August 21st. This, of course, coming after Canada says it will allow vaccinated Americans into the country starting August 9th. Capital Tonight reporter Ryan Whalen joining us now. Ryan, what a back and forth here. What's going on?
Yeah, Karen, this announcement actually coming as kind of a surprise. The presumption that we had heard from lawmakers and several other reports was that for at least like the last 6 months, it was the Canadian government that we were waiting on, as the general polling numbers showed that Canadians were more hesitant about opening the border than Americans. However, while Canada is now letting vaccinated Americans cross the northern border starting August 9th, it's the American government that is saying it's extending its restrictions for another month, meaning that only people classified as essential travelers can come from Canada to the United States. Congressman Brian Higgins, who's the Northern Border Caucus chair, says he's disappointed by this and he feels like the administration has been misleading people. He says that right now, the only thing that should matter is whether a traveler is vaccinated or not.
I can't defend the indefensible. And this is just bad public policy. The president has been ill-advised in all of this because what's occurred here, what's not occurring, is in direct conflict with the science that we've been admonished to follow.
Karen, as for why this decision was made, Higgins says he can only speculate because really nobody has heard from the administration since about the third week of January, when President Biden then directed cabinet members to come up with a plan regarding the border within 14 days. We haven't heard anything about that plan since. I did speak with an immigration attorney who says for Americans who start traveling across the border on August 9th, this will not affect them coming back. So if you're a U.S. citizen or a green card holder, you will be able to come back in the United States if you travel to Canada.
Definitely a surprising development. That's our Ryan Whalen reporting. Thank you, Ryan. New York State nears a tentative $26 billion deal with several of the largest drug distributors and manufacturers. It could lead to more than $1 billion for the state. Under the proposed global agreement, drug distributors McKesson Corporation, Cardinal Health, and Amerisource Bergen Drug Corporation would pay up to $21 billion over the next 18 years to resolve claims against them. Meanwhile, drug manufacturer Johnson & Johnson would pay up to $5 billion over 9 years. There are also some significant changes these companies would have to make as part of the agreement. Officials say this will not only help end the opioid epidemic, but prevent it from happening again.
The trail of destruction and tragedy has basically ravaged every corner of New York and just about every region of this nation. And to be clear, the numerous companies that manufactured and distributed this poison did so without any regard for human life.
The proposed agreement would need to be approved by enough states across the country in order to happen. New York has already signed on to the deal, with other states having 30 days to sign on. Officials say nationwide the money will be going toward opioid treatment and prevention. Rochester Mayor Lovely Warren and her husband were in court Wednesday, pleading not guilty to weapons and child endangerment charges. The mayor arriving separately from her husband, Timothy Grannison. They are both charged with felony criminal possession of a firearm and 2 counts of endangering the welfare of a child, which is a misdemeanor. They are charged also with 2 counts of failure to lock or secure firearms in a dwelling, a misdemeanor in violation of the Rochester City Code. Both Warren and Grannison pleaded not guilty and left court Wednesday with no comment. This all comes after a search warrant in May at a home owned by Warren, which triggered these indictments. Grannison was charged back then, while charges against Warren were brought when an indictment was unsealed this past Friday. Warren's attorney says he believes Warren is still in a position to continue her duties as mayor of Rochester.
Well, the majority of the region got through today completely dry. A couple of showers and thundery downpours passing through, part of upper level disturbance. That's also going to clear the wildfire smoke out of the air here this evening. Skies behind this disturbance mostly clear, and that's going to set us up for some comfortable sleeping weather. Even today, noticeably less muggy, and it's going to stay relatively comfortable in terms of humidity tomorrow and into Friday before it comes back up for the weekend and into the start of next week. Tonight, a good night to keep the windows open with temperatures dropping back into the mid to upper 50s. Tomorrow looks great. A lot of sun in the morning, some fair weather fluff dotting the sky for the afternoon. Temperature is actually a bit on the cooler side, but we'll still make the mid to upper 70s here tomorrow afternoon. Here's a look at our futurecast, showing the mostly clear sky by midnight, and it stays mostly clear into tomorrow morning. A lot of sun tomorrow morning, and then the afternoon featuring some of that fair weather fluff. Clouds are going to build back into the region here for Thursday night. A bit of a cloudier day here on Friday, although mostly dry. As we head into the afternoon, we could see a couple pop-up thunderstorms, especially from the greater capital region points north, but like today, the majority of the region will get through the day completely dry. Weekend looking half great, half bad. We'll talk about the better day to get outside coming up next.
Coming up tomorrow on Your Morning on Spectrum News 1, it's Christmas in July. Time to think of others.
Damani Woolley will tell us about the Ronald McDonald House Charities Initiative to support families in need. Join us tomorrow morning starting at 6.
Welcome back to your evening here on Spectrum News 1.
Getting things started off for you right now with a check of your weather on the ones.
Good Wednesday evening. I'm Spectrum News meteorologist Ryan Finn. Any showers or thundery downpours we have out there this evening will taper by 10 o'clock. Skies becoming mostly clear. We've got some great sleeping weather coming up here for tonight. Could probably get away with shutting the AC off and leaving the windows open, as we're going to drop down into the 50s. In fact, we're right around 60 by midnight, mid to upper 50s by tomorrow morning in the greater capital region. Now, for tomorrow, a lot of sun early on, and then we look toward the afternoon. We'll have some fair weather fluff dotting the sky. Temperature is a hint cool, but certainly a nice enough day to be outdoors. A pleasantly cool day, we'll call it. We've got a couple pop-up thunderstorms in the forecast here for Friday as we wrap up another work week, but many areas will get through the day completely dry. Weekend forecast is going to be half good, half bad. We'll detail that and take a look at your 7-day forecast coming up in the next half hour.
Thanks, Ryan. We'll be sure to check back in with you later on this evening. Let's take a look now at some top stories making headlines here on Spectrum News 1. A new law in effect in Albany will help protect renters from being priced out of where they live. The good cause eviction law will mandate that tenants cannot be removed from a home without meeting the grounds for eviction and will protect residents from annual rent increases of more than 5%. Officials in Albany say less residential turnover will help create lasting relationships in the community. Meanwhile, state officials are conducting meetings in various communities across the region designed to address gun violence. Governor Andrew Cuomo making it a priority to keep at-risk youth from falling into the cycle of violence and has created hundreds of jobs for young adults ages 15 to 24 to help keep them off the streets. Those jobs will be based in Albany, Troy, and Schenectady and last throughout the summer. And keeping Saratoga's four-legged athletes healthy takes hours and hours of hard work and love. We'll introduce you to a couple of people doing just that at the spa. The Great New York State Fair is less than a month away, kicking off August 20th at the State Fairgrounds in Syracuse. Now, the fair attracts people from all over New York State and beyond. And with COVID restrictions lifted, along with free admission being offered for special groups this year, it is sure to be a busy season. Here to talk about some of the promotions being offered this year is Fair Director Troy Waffner. Troy, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure you are beyond busy. A lot to look forward to at the fair this year. Tell us about some of those things that people are excited to see this year.
You know what? We're just excited to come back. We had a year off last year. It was kind of a boring year out here. We have 30 days of 30 days left until we kick it off. We'll have the rides. We'll have plenty of food. The food everybody loves, the fried food and everything else. And we'll program all the buildings. You can buy your ShamWow and everything else you want here on the fairground. So we're just getting excited. We're going to start building it up. The tents will start going up. The stands will start moving in, and it's a good time to be on the fairgrounds right now.
Troy, we're looking at some video from a couple of years ago. How exciting, how fun to get things back to normal. I know there are some special days planned this season, including Dairy Day to celebrate the state's dairy farmers. Tell us a little bit about some of those days, would you?
Oh, absolutely. We're trying to bring back everything the fair has been about in its tradition. So we have Dairy Day to celebrate the dairy industry, which is the largest sector of agriculture in New York State. We're bringing back, Armed Services Day. We're bringing back Firemen and EMS Day, Police Day, Women's Day, Pride Day, which, just to go to Pride Day for a second, we're probably still the only state fair in the nation that celebrates the diversity, of the Pride movement at its fairgrounds. So it's an exciting time. The only thing that won't be there is we're not doing the ceremonies that go along with fire and police and armed services, but we're going to be raising the flag and doing that sort of thing to really celebrate the history and tradition of the fair and celebrate those specific folks who put themselves out there every day of the week.
Troy,
the one big change actually this year instead.
Go ahead. Sorry. The change.
The one big change this year is we're not doing specific senior days, but every single day of the fair is going to be senior day, and that if you're over 65, you get in for free.
I love that. I'm excited. 18 days, the longest fair that we've had. How can people buy their tickets?
People buy their tickets starting August 1st online. You can come to our website and we'll have a slider or a link that'll get you right there, or you can go to eTix, which is our official ticket provider, and buy them right there. And this year the ticket price is $3, which is lower than it's ever been when you factor in dollar days versus normal price days. But we're going right to $3, and it'll be a good time. You get 2 national touring acts and everything in between.
Love that. You've got food, you've got music, entertainment, rides. You guys do it all. You do it all so well. New York State Fair Director Troy Waffner, thank you so much for the time. And Troy, save me some fried dough, right? I'm going to see you there. Just save me a piece of fried dough.
Nothing like pizza fried dough, you know what I mean? Well, I'll definitely save it for you.
Love it. Troy, thank you so much for the time. For many people, nothing says summer like maybe a hot dog and an ice-cold beer.
Yeah, there are so many options to choose from, even more if you consider craft beers from right here in New York State.
And now New York's booming craft beer industry is getting a big boost thanks to $300,000 of an investment from the state.
As Seth Voorhees tells us, it could help take New York beers to the next level.
A multi-billion-dollar industry in New York State.
The whole movement, it's fantastic.
And Chris Hansen is proud to be part of it. His Climbing Vines Craft Ale Company opened in 2013 in Penn Yan.
It's a fun industry to be in because people are usually in a good mood when they're out to have a beer.
All of Climbing Vines beers,
so these will become the hop cones,
begin in a large hops field that's part of the property.
And once they take off, they can grow 6 inches to a foot a day.
It's a lot of work.
We grow Nugget, Cascade, Centennial, Chinook.
Hop varieties which are getting a boost now from Cornell University researchers.
It was farmers who really drove this.
Jan Nyrup is director of Cornell Agritech in Geneva, which is launching a hops breeding program, working to develop new varieties and improving existing ones so they grow better in New York, disease-free, and most important, make great tasting beer.
So that farmers can know, well, if I need to produce something now, what is the best variety for me to use under New York conditions?
It's not going to happen overnight, but researchers hope to develop a signature New York hops variety.
That's the goal.
The Cornell program will also include a library of hops varieties grown in New York State. Important because the state's farm brewing law requires 60% of a brewery's hops and other ingredients to be grown in-state.
For the craft brewing industry to be able to say what you are drinking was made right here in New York, that's important.
You know, I think it is a fantastic idea that Cornell's on board because I think that is a limitation because a lot of those proprietary hops that people like in those juicy, hazy IPAs, we can't get to grow here.
Getting that access is key for a New York industry that's at 400 plus craft breweries and growing.
Yeah, we're just happy to be a part of it.
In Penn Yan, Seth Voorhees, Spectrum News.
A final gift from a dying young man. Trent Berry of Fulton donated his brain with the hope of finding a cure to a rare and deadly cancer. Glioblastoma is an aggressive brain tumor that kills about 10,000 people each year, according to the National Brain Tumor Society. Our Jessica Hochul talked with his family, who knows the damage it can do firsthand.
Did they drop kick it? No.
Jackson and Toby are both 9 years old. They are connected through their older brother, Trent Berry, who taught them to play sports. But playing basketball and soccer hasn't been the same since they lost Trent in February of last year.
This is the sweatshirt that I used to wear. Whenever you hold it, know that I am here. Love, Trent.
Trent had been experiencing headaches, facial paralysis, and difficulty speaking. As his symptoms progressed, his family knew something serious was wrong. In May 2020, he was diagnosed with glioblastoma multiforme, a very aggressive form of brain cancer.
Trent was a really quiet, passive but passionate person, and anything he put his mind to, anything he did, he succeeded. And he was just genuinely a good person. He's a people pleaser, but also he just would reach out to everybody and help everybody. It didn't matter what was going on in his own life. Even through his illness, he was cheering up his friends, and you know, he just kind of took this cancer journey as it was, and you know, it was what it was, and he just fought.
It's estimated that about 13,000 people will be diagnosed with glioblastoma multiforme this year alone. The typical survival rate is within 2 years of diagnosis. Trent was studying political science at SUNY Oswego and worked at Mimi's Drive-In when he was diagnosed. He fought for 10 months. Before he died, Trent wanted to donate his brain and tumors for research. His mother fulfilled that wish through the Gift from a Child Pediatric Brain Cancer Research Initiative and donated his brain to a research center in New York City. His family will be notified if he's used in any research finding or paper.
He was hoping to save somebody from this battle and having to go through it again.
Hoping to shed light on a rare and deadly disease and protect the next family from losing someone they love. Jessica Hochul, Spectrum News.
Well, the majority of the region got through today completely dry. A couple of showers and thundery downpours passing through, part of upper level disturbance. That's also going to clear the wildfire smoke out of the air here this evening. Skies behind this disturbance mostly clear, and that's going to set us up for some comfortable sleeping weather. Even today, noticeably less muggy, and it's going to stay relatively comfortable in terms of humidity tomorrow and into Friday before it comes back up for the weekend and into the start of next week. Tonight, a good night to keep the windows open with temperatures dropping back into the mid to upper 50s. Tomorrow looks great. A lot of sun in the morning, some fair weather fluff dotting the sky for the afternoon. Temperature is actually a bit on the cooler side, but we'll still make the mid to upper 70s here tomorrow afternoon. Here's a look at our futurecast showing the mostly clear sky by midnight, and it stays mostly clear into tomorrow morning. A lot of sun tomorrow morning, and then the afternoon featuring some of that fair weather fluff. Clouds are going to build back into the region here for Thursday night. A bit of a cloudier day here on Friday, although mostly dry. As we head into the afternoon, we could see a couple pop-up thunderstorms, especially from the greater capital region points north, but like today, the majority of the region will get through the day completely dry. Weekend looking half great, half bad. We'll talk about the better day to get outside coming up next.
At times, some horses can look like they were born to run, but it does take a lot of caring hands to make sure your favorite thoroughbreds are healthy and ready to run in Saratoga. We're introducing you to some of the people responsible for making sure those horses live long, healthy lives. That's after the break.
50% of households remain without power after this week's winter storm. Central Hudson crews are working around the clock to restore services, but they expect it could take until midday Monday to get everyone back on the grid. With freezing temperatures setting in this weekend, residents have options if they need a place to stay warm. Those include the warming centers at the Andy Murphy Center in Kingston and the SUNY New Paltz Gym. Now here's a check of your hyper-local weather.
The weather is going to stay pretty uneventful right through tonight, but it will be cold with lows both above and below zero. Temperatures will then max out in the 20s, if not the low 30s for some of us tomorrow. It's also going to stay pretty quiet through at least the start of your Monday. Late Monday into Tuesday, we could get grazed by some wet weather. Otherwise, the rest of the week is looking pretty dry as temperatures get back into the 40s.
The Hudson Valley is still working to recover from this week's winter storm that brought snow and ice to the region. Ulster County was hit the hardest, with officials telling us nearly 50% of households are still without power. Governor Kathy Hochul joining us now with an update on the state's efforts to help the region. Good evening, Governor. Thanks for joining us.
Good evening, and thank you for the coverage of the storm. And yes, we saw this actually sweep the nation. It hit New York State very severely on Friday. And I was out at the command center in Ulster County literally Friday morning, bringing more resources from the state DOT, the Salters. He took care of the major and secondary roads. So the roads were cleared primarily, but what we're dealing with right now is an unprecedented level of ice, the concentration of which we've not seen at least in a decade or more, almost 3/4 of an inch of ice, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it is an extraordinary amount of ice. When what's happening right now is that we're continuing to have tree limbs snapping and bringing down power lines. We've been dealing with this the last 24 hours, and every time you correct one area, it seems like another area becomes vulnerable to the trees coming down. So it's dangerous to be out there, but also we need to sound the alarm. It is very dangerous to be in your home without power right now. Those of you who survived the night and have friends who survived last night, this will be the second night for about 35,000 people who have homes in Ulster County, and we're telling them it is utmost importance, urgent, that you go to a warming center because the temperatures are going to drop much lower than they even were yesterday, down to 0 and less, and that is a dangerous situation. So we want people to check on neighbors, and if they don't have power, they're not aware of this. The power is not likely to be restored tonight. We have over 900 people on the ground. On a normal day, it would be about 100, 130 individuals to deal with the lines and the utilities. But 900 people are trying their very best to catch up with what is still very much an ongoing weather event where the ice is still wreaking havoc, downing trees, which means the wires are coming down as well. So that's the situation. Our Commissioner of Emergency Services literally lives in Ulster County. She's been there nonstop around the clock working with the county executives and others. So we're on the ground. We deployed resources. There are warming centers, and we just are very concerned that people need to leave their homes if they don't have power, unless you have a generator that's functioning well and keeping that clear of walls, at least 3 or 4 feet away from the walls. But do not use your oven as a heat source, and do not use unattended space heaters, because that could be dangerous as well. So we just want to really sound the alarm and let people know that we're not through this yet, and it may go through tomorrow as well.
So if you're just joining us, to reiterate, the governor saying to make sure that you do not stay in your home without power for a second night because of how low those temperatures are going to drop tonight. And Governor, yesterday you deployed the National Guard to help with recovery efforts in Ulster County. What exactly are they doing in the area right now?
They're doing everything. People are going to houses to check on people, checking in on the warming centers, making sure that we can clear all the limbs. We have scores of people out there trying to clear the limbs off the road, the downed trees, which are dangerous. And there are literally live wires out there right now that people, especially as it gets dark, they can't see this. So the safest place really, if you have power, be at home. Do not be on our roads until this all gets cleared up. But if you do not have power, and these people may not even have the communication right now, if they do, we want them to go to a warming center. But if you know anybody who lives in Ulster County, check on them. Find out whether they have power. If it's a friend or family member, bring them to your house, or let them know it is just not safe to be in their home tonight. We'll get through this. And again, we had over 65,000 homes without power during the course of this event. We're down to about 35,000, but that is still a high number. If you're in your home with little kids without power, it is a scary situation. I've lived through many of these events coming from Buffalo, so I'm well familiar with this. But the safest place if you don't have power is in a friend's home or in a warming center tonight. And we have a phone number. A hotline is 845-443-8888. And there's warming centers at ulstercountyny.gov. But also a lot of people don't have power, so they aren't able to do this. So this is where we are good neighbors. This is when we check on each other and help us get through this together.
Absolutely. And I know it's not expected that the power is going to be back on tonight. Is there any estimate of when we can expect power to be restored to the majority of people?
I think Monday, 95% of residents should be restored by Monday at noon is what we're being told by the utility companies. Again, this is 900 people on the ground ready to work, but it is still, as they restored one major transmission line that went to Kingston. But while that happens, others are coming down, and that is the treacherous situation we're facing now. And they cannot be working on these in the dark, so literally it's going to be a night for some people without power. And I have to say that the utilities are really doing an incredible job. This is a larger Ulster County activation for utilities than we had with either Hurricane Sandy or Irene. So that's the scale of what we're dealing with. It is just simply not possible to keep up with it right now. But we're working closely with them, making sure that they are doing everything they can, bringing all the resources they can, and again, working with our National Guard at the shelters. The state has provided food and blankets and cots and water. We deployed generators for people, as well as dozens of tree clearing crews, especially on Route 32. And on top of that, we have over 250 DOT plows and operators focused on bringing back a lot of the dark traffic signals. Again, if you're out there driving, you approach a traffic signal that's out. We have people out there, but if you find a place where they're not, where it was recently disabled, make sure you treat it as if it's a stop sign, that everyone takes a turn, the person to your right goes first, and just make sure everybody's safe on the road tonight.
Absolutely. Governor, thank you so much for joining us with this update. To reiterate, if you do not have power, you are being urged by the state to go seek a warming shelter, get in contact with your neighbors and friends who you know might not have power, and urge them to take precautions. Again, using your oven is not an appropriate heating source while your power is out, and there are resources to help before power gets restored. Governor Hochul joining us with an update on the weather situation in the Mid-Hudson region.